I'm Brian Reisinger, columnist, consultant, and farm boy, writing about rural issues, the economy, and more for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
And I'm Kristin and Brian, video columnist for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and host of the daily radio show As Goes Wisconsin.
And this is Get to the Point, a new Journal Sentinel video series between two reasonable people who happen to look at the world and Wisconsin from different perspectives, but share at least one thing in common: one on what's best for our state and the people in it.
We quickly give our thoughts on 3 different topics so you can get on with your day. This week, we're talking about what's keeping Congress from tackling big issues that matter to Wisconsin, the Farm Bill, and a mystery topic that Brian is unveiling in a little bit.
All right, so nothing to start a show off to get people's blood boiling than to talk about Congress. So right now, Congress is in what's called divided government, where Democrats control the Senate and Republicans control the House. And there's lots of important issues they need to be working on. One of them is the Farm Bill, which we're going to talk more about, have a huge impact on Wisconsin. And if they don't take action on the Farm Bill or other things, bad things happen. So the question, and kind of the question I have for you is, what do you think is the biggest barrier to Congress actually tackling serious issues like that?
Yeah. So, what I know about the Farm Bill specifically is, it's something that gets renewed every 5 years. It's boiled down to its simplest explanation is it's something that's responsible for feeding a lot of people and compensating and providing a safety net to people who feed us. And so it is a big deal. I made a video about it back in April because it's such a big deal, but it's also not super sexy. It's complicated. It's in the weeds as far as like what people actually want to hear about. And I know this because not a lot of people watched that video I made. And so it's so cynical to think this, but I just wonder how much of it is the cycle of the media. And it's what the media decides to cover, but it's also the media trying to figure out what the public wants to hear about, because what did they click on? And then ultimately you have some elected officials, I'm not saying all of them, but you have some who want to get media attention. And so it's this like terrible cycle of divisive bills that probably aren't solving as big of problems as something like the Farm Bill does, that gets headlines and gets priority over something that like doesn't but there's a deadline on this, right? Like it has to get done, and it's in the law that this has to be renewed, and yet they're super behind schedule.
Totally. So I think we've actually accidentally found a spot where we agree, because that's where I was going to go. I was just going to be like, it is a lack of seriousness in our political conversation. So I'm going to try not to agree with you too much. But it's just true. Like, there is serious work going on in Congress, right? Like they're working on the National Defense Authorization Act. They're doing other things, but there's also a lot of unserious people or unserious things going on too. And that's the stuff that gets the attention. And I think you're right. It's media. I think it goes down another layer too, which is to say, I think a lot of people get fed up with politics, get pissed off at the BS, and they kind of check out. And I get that. I understand that. I want to do that a lot. And
it's summer, baby.
It's it, right? And,
got vacations to take.
Totally. And you're trying to feed the kids, and you're trying to do all the different things that you have to do in real life. And it doesn't feel like real life when Congress is acting that way and or being represented that way. But the problem with that is that when we check out and people don't hear from voters in Wisconsin about like, why haven't you tackled the Farm Bill, things like that. I'm not saying nobody is doing that, but it really, it pushes people to like not want to care. And I think we have to like resist that urge and do the opposite, because at the end of the day, the people in Congress are human beings who are going to respond to, the kind of pressure that they're getting. And if they're hearing that the farmers, not only the farmers, but the people who eat food, which is everyone, are ticked off about the Farm Bill going to expire in September, I think we'll see things change. But it's hard to not look at what's going on and just say like, why would I bother?
Yeah. Well, and it's also, I think it comes back to a bigger question that we don't have time in our 12-minute video to tackle, but it's like the responsibility of media to keep hounding on things. Because even when I knew we were going to talk about this, it's like, it's not like there's a ton of articles right now that people are covering of where are we with this bill. And basically, there's some movement, I think, in the House Agriculture Committee that like they may have some kind, it's like there's not even a text of this out yet. And it's supposed to be due or like renewed by September 30th. And there's just the pressure doesn't seem to be there. But on the media side, it's like, if no one reads that article, because they're like, this seems like out of my pay grade, then they don't put the effort to put the pressure on.
Totally. And also, like, I mean, the thing is, time is shorter, even than it seems, right? Because we got like a week until they're on recess, which it's not a good thing for Congress that it's called recess, because everyone's just like, what? But they got a week until then, and then they're out on recess. They come back in September. They've got other big bills to tackle. So, I mean, the chances of them actually doing it before it expires is pretty low, I would say,
And if memory serves me correct, and moving on to the next question, it's not the first time that would have happened as far as not getting this done by the due date. And so my next question is, once they finally do get the Farm Bill, because they will eventually, there's going to be a debate over what's in it. And predictably, there's going to be a big fight over food assistance, because if you look back to the 2014 and the 2018 Farm Bills, both experienced delays because of fights over the SNAP program. And so pretty much assuming that it's not going to be any different this time. And so I guess for you, when you think about this, is a fight over food assistance and how much is allocated to that, and it is a big part of the bill, or historically has been, is that worth delaying renewing the bill?
That's a fair question. What I would say is I think Congress has really lost its North Star on what the Farm Bill should be about, which is securing our nation's food supply. And, as you said, there's sort of this big long-term compromise that's been in place where it's like 80% of the bill is food assistance programs, about 20% of the bill is other things like crop insurance and things supporting commodity prices and land conservation, things like that. And I understand to a degree where that compromise, that bargain comes from, because you need to get both parties to the table and get a lot of constituencies around the table to get a big bill like this passed. I think that there is a difference, though, between that being something that is maybe helpful or needed to pass it, and that being something that means that the bill can lose its focus entirely. So I think there's a legitimate debate to be had around food assistance programs. Where should that money be going? How should it be spent? All of that, because it is, ultimately, it's on the other end of the food supply question that the Farm Bill originally was supposed to deal with. So I understand that it's there. I think that that's honestly, to me, that's an example of a relevant, legitimate policy debate to have and get it right. And people who, on both sides of the political aisle, who care about people being able to feed their families can work through the particulars around what sort of accountability and different things are needed. I don't think that's totally extraneous to debate that. I also understand that any debate will hold things up at this point, but that's a legitimate discussion. I think it's very easy for that discussion to get out of hand and become ridiculous. It's also very easy for other hot buttons to get attached to this. So if people think that like the fight over food assistance is a problem, wait until this current Congress gets a hold of it and does the things they could do, which is like culture war stuff from either the right or the left, climate change stuff from the left. Like there's all kinds of things that, whatever you think of those individual issues and whether you want to have that policy debate, this thing could get those hung on there too. Yeah. And so I get very worried about this becoming like a Christmas tree rather than Congress eating its vegetables, pun intended, and trying to focus on the policy debates that are relevant to the food supply. So I'm worried about it actually going further off the rails with other issues as well.
With other things. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think inevitably the SNAP stuff's going to be there, despite the fact that there was already concessions made with the debt ceiling bill. But something that I think is interesting, as we have now broken day after day record heat, and in the countries, and there are certain states in the country, Wisconsin is in a terrible drought. And so, as you said, there's two parts of there's like a safety net and compensation for farmers, as far as what the huge part of this bill is, at a time where it's riskier and riskier to be a farmer because of extreme weather, right? And so ultimately, if part of this is also having funds for conservation of farmlands and like helping farmers with the upfront cost to mitigate climate change, isn't that kind of the same side of two different sides of the same coin, as far as like, we want to protect you so you can keep farming, but also like we need to fund programs to help curb extreme weather?
I'm smiling because I knew as soon as I said climate change, you were going to come back on that. So, look, farmers know that the climate is changing because they live it. They live this extreme weather, right? they also, people like my family and people like where I'm from, like hate what a political football it is. And you can actually have both those conversations. You can have the, like, what's been going on with the weather and all that, and what sorts of things do we need to do for emergency response to drought or flooding and all that sort of stuff. You can have that conversation. You can also get people really ticked off about like the words that you just uttered, you know? And I think it's because it's become so politicized that, like, the way I look at it is, with a huge issue like the Farm Bill that is so big and so complex and already has so much going on in it, it's like, let's focus on the things that we can agree on, like how to get, you know, dairy assistance programs right, how to make sure those insurance programs function when people are paying into them. Let's make sure that they pay out to those farmers in an efficient way, because that's actually a really innovative, good program that isn't, you know, a bunch of subsidies. It's like a program people pay into voluntarily, and it can help make sure that when a commodity price falls to a certain point, they have some sort of a safety net. That's like a good solution. Those are things we should be talking about. And the things that are like those hot buttons, whether they're things that one side likes or the other side likes, it's like kind of like a bar fight. It's like, hey, take it outside. Like, it's got to be settled. But like, in here, can we talk about policy that we know can let us move this bill forward? So that's my take on that.
We'll see if that actually happens.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. So for our third topic, our mystery topic, we're going to keep it on the topic of food. We've had some good debates about Wisconsin and California since you've lived in California, and since I'm back and forth between California and Wisconsin. So we're both qualified to have the real debate here, which is hamburgers. Are you Culvers or InNOut?
Oh, that is a good. They're so. I feel like it's been a while since I had an In-N-Out burger, if I'm going to be totally honest. I honestly think I'm Culver's, because In-N-Out burgers always were very good, but like I never kneeled at the altar of In-N-Out is the best fast food and no one else gets it. I literally, and like as someone who is pregnant right now, I literally had Culvers yesterday for lunch because I was like, this is what I'm craving. Although I did do the chicken tenders instead of a burger. But I'll go Culvers. What about you?
Well, I'll tell you, the reason it's even a discussion is just because In-N-Out is such a religion for people. You said it with altar. Like, I'm a big Lebowski fan, and like I like In-N-Out like anybody else, but like I just think it's like not even a comparison. This might be about who can like slam In-N-Out harder. Like, it's like In-N-Out to me is more like McDonald's. So like comparing the two, and people do that with me, is like, it's kind of like comparing a Chevy to a lawnmower. Like, nothing wrong with a lawnmower. Some people really like their lawnmowers, but it's not a pickup truck. So that's where I'm at on that one.
So you're not waiting in line at In-N-Out anytime soon. Is there a Culver's even in California? Have you found one yet?
I have not found one. So I have waited in line for Culver's. I've waited in line for In-N-Out. I'll wait in longer lines for Culver's, but I'm really happy that at home in Sauk County, when I'm back at the farm, the line is short. And it's the original, by the way.
It's the original one. That's what I was just going to say. The line's short at the original one? That doesn't seem right.
Oh, it's just because they run it so well. You know, it's so efficient. People come in and out, get their food. It's like, it's just a wonderful place. So
it's a magical place.
Magical place.
Craig Culver, killing it.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you for watching today. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing to the Journal Sentinel or one of our USA Today Network Wisconsin newspapers. And what topics do you think we should be exploring in future episodes? We'd love to hear your ideas. Drop us a line at jsedit@jrn.com.